What if the greatest minds of the ancient world left us a message we've only just begun to understand? Across continents separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time, monuments rise from the earth with precision that shouldn't exist. The Great Pyramid of Giza points to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a single degree. Temples in Cambodia, Peru, and Egypt align to the same celestial patterns. Structures built by civilizations that never met share measurements so exact they seem impossible. Could ancient builders have encoded a universal language into stone itself? For over 2 centuries, archaeologists, astronomers, and mathematicians have discovered peculiar patterns hidden inside humanity's oldest structures. From the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of Angkor Wat, from Stonehenge to Teotihuacan, ancient monuments contain geometric ratios, astronomical alignments, and mathematical constants that appeared centuries before scholars claim they were discovered. These aren't vague coincidences. The numbers repeat with precision that defies accident. This matters now because modern technology finally allows us to measure these structures with laser accuracy, revealing relationships our ancestors couldn't have detected by eye alone. What we're finding challenges fundamental assumptions about ancient knowledge, global contact, and the transmission of ideas across time. Some scientists call it convergent problem-solving. Others see evidence of a lost scientific tradition. The monuments themselves remain silent, holding their secrets in proportion and angle. The mystery begins in 1798 when Napoleon's expedition to Egypt brought not just soldiers but 167 scholars and scientists. French mathematician Gaspard Monge measured the Great Pyramid and discovered something unsettling. The ratio of its perimeter to its height expressed pi, 3.14159, with startling accuracy. This pyramid was built around 2560 BCE, roughly 2,000 years before the Greek mathematician Archimedes supposedly first calculated pi to precision. By the 1860s, Scottish astronomer Charles Piazzi Smith took thousands of measurements inside the Great Pyramid's passages. He documented how the pyramid's dimensions encoded not just pi but also the golden ratio, 1.618, a number that appears throughout nature in spirals, leaf patterns, and proportions of the human body. Critics dismissed his work as numerology, claiming he cherry-picked measurements. But later surveys confirmed many of his core findings, even as they rejected his more speculative claims. The pattern expanded globally in 1931 when archaeologist Alfred Watkins published observations about prehistoric sites in Britain. He noticed that ancient monuments, standing stones, and hilltop markers often aligned in straight lines stretching for miles. He called these ley lines and suggested they represented ancient surveying paths. While his interpretation proved controversial, the alignments themselves were mathematically verifiable. In 1968, engineer Alexander Thom published rigorous surveys of over 300 megalithic sites across Britain and France. Using theodolites and statistical analysis, he discovered that Stone Age builders used a standard unit of measurement, what he called the megalithic yard of 2.72 feet, across hundreds of structures built over thousands of years. This implied coordination or inherited knowledge across generations and geography. The mystery deepened in the 1970s when researchers mapped the Angkor Wat temple complex in Cambodia using aerial photography. The massive 12th-century Hindu temple, covering over 400 acres, aligned precisely with the spring equinox. But the real shock came from the distances. The temple's measurements encoded the Hindu concept of cosmic time cycles called yugas, with key structures spaced at intervals representing millions of years in Hindu cosmology. These weren't approximations. The measurements matched the mythological numbers within meters. By 1983, American researcher Graham Hancock began investigating alignments between pyramids worldwide. He documented how the 3 pyramids of Giza mirror the pattern of stars in Orion's belt as they appeared around 10,500 BCE. Not when the pyramids were built, but 8,000 years earlier. Computer simulations confirmed the stellar alignment. The question became, why would Egyptian architects encode a date millennia before their own civilization? In 1999, researchers using GPS technology measured Teotihuacan in Mexico, the ancient city of the gods built around 100 CE. The pyramid of the sun's base measures 223.5 meters per side, exactly half the length of the Great Pyramid's base in Egypt. The two monuments, built by cultures separated by an ocean and 2,500 years, share a 1:2 ratio in their fundamental dimensions. Both also align to true north with precision that requires sophisticated astronomical observation. How do you explain identical ratios in monuments built an ocean apart? The most controversial pattern emerged in 2013 when Italian architects analyzed over 70 ancient sites worldwide using satellite data. They claimed to find a global grid where major monuments sit at locations related by specific geometric relationships, namely, coordinates that express multiples of the golden ratio when converted to distances. Mainstream archaeologists reject this as retrofitting data to match predetermined conclusions, but the coordinate relationships remain mathematically documented. Recent laser scanning in 2019 revealed new chambers inside the Great Pyramid using muon tomography, a technology that detects cosmic ray particles. The newly discovered void above the Grand Gallery measures roughly 30 meters long, positioned with the same precise orientation as every other passage. Its purpose remains unknown, but its existence proves the pyramid still holds undiscovered geometric relationships after 4,500 years of study. The mathematical evidence divides into three categories: measurements that are confirmed, alignments that are documented, and interpretations that remain disputed. First, the confirmed measurements. Modern laser scanning has verified that the Great Pyramid sides differ in length by less than 58 millimeters across a 230-meter base, an accuracy of 0.025%. This level of precision requires technology we assume ancient Egypt didn't possess. The pyramid's alignment to true north deviates by only 3.4 arc-minutes, more accurate than the Royal Observatory at Greenwich when it was first built in 1675. These aren't contested facts. They're verified by independent measurements using instruments accurate to millimeters. Second, the astronomical alignments. The Caracol Temple at Chichen Itza in Mexico contains windows that frame Venus at its most extreme positions every 8 years. Newgrange in Ireland, built around 3200 BCE, features a roof box that allows sunlight to penetrate its central chamber only at winter solstice sunrise, a 17-minute window on 1 day per year that has functioned for 5,000 years. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the world's oldest known temple at 11,500 years old, has pillars arranged to track the star Sirius. These alignments are measurable and repeatable. The dispute isn't whether they exist, but whether they represent deliberate astronomical knowledge or fortunate accidents. Third, the controversial connections. The claim that ancient monuments form a global geometric grid relies on selecting which sites to include and which to ignore. Critics note that with thousands of ancient structures worldwide, finding mathematical relationships becomes statistically inevitable. What's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, like drawing a target around bullet holes after firing randomly. The coordinates of Giza, Angkor Wat, and Easter Island do express certain geometric relationships, but skeptics argue this says more about human pattern recognition than ancient planning. Documentary evidence also exists. Ancient texts describe sophisticated astronomical knowledge. The Babylonian tablets from 1000 BCE contain detailed star catalogs and predict planetary positions. The Antikythera mechanism, a Greek bronze device from 100 BCE, is a geared astronomical calculator that predicts eclipses and tracks planetary cycles. The Maya long count calendar track cycles of 5125 years with leap day corrections comparable to modern calculations. These artifacts prove ancient peoples possessed mathematical and astronomical capabilities that matched or exceeded what their monuments would require. The strongest evidence for intentional encoding comes from internal consistency. When the golden ratio appears in a building, it typically appears multiple times in different dimensions at different scales in relationships between different elements. This redundancy suggests deliberate design rather than coincidence. A single occurrence of pi or phi could be accidental. When the same constant appears in 5 different measurements within one structure, probability shifts toward intention. Mainstream archaeology offers a straightforward explanation. Ancient cultures developed sophisticated mathematics independently because humans across time face similar problems requiring similar solutions. When you want to build something large and stable, certain proportions naturally emerge. The golden ratio appears in nature, so cultures observing nature would discover it. Astronomical alignments reflect agricultural necessity. Farmers everywhere need to track seasons for planting. The apparent global connections are selection bias, cherry-picking similarities while ignoring thousands of sites that don't fit the pattern. Some researchers propose a middle position. They accept that ancient peoples possessed advanced mathematical knowledge but reject claims of global coordination. Instead, they suggest a lost common ancestor, a predecessor civilization from the Ice Age that developed astronomy and geometry before passing fragments of knowledge to survivors after climate catastrophes around 11,000 BCE. This would explain why similar ideas appear worldwide without requiring impossible voyages or telepathy. The theory remains speculative because the Ice Age evidence is sparse, and rising sea levels since then have submerged many coastlines where such cultures would have lived. Critics of the ancient code interpretation point to confirmed examples of pattern-seeking gone wrong. In the 19th century, numerous mathematicians found elaborate Bible codes by spacing letters at specific intervals, claiming predictions of future events. All of these have been debunked. The same techniques find identical codes in Moby Dick and telephone directories. The human brain excels at finding patterns, even in random data. We should expect some monument measurements to align by pure chance. Yet coincidence has limits. Statistical modeling shows that the likelihood of multiple independent monuments sharing identical ratios by chance drops below 1 in a million when 3 or more constants overlap in a single structure. In mathematics, repetition defines pattern. Whether that pattern results from shared human cognition or shared heritage remains the unresolved question. By the early 21st century, computational models allowed researchers to simulate the sky as it appeared tens of thousands of years ago. These programs confirmed what early theorists suspected. The monuments of Giza, Teotihuacan, and Angkor not only align with stars but align with each other across time. When viewed from orbit, they fall along great circle arcs connecting ancient power centers, lines that trace what some call the archaeogeodetic network. Critics again warn against overinterpretation, but the alignments persist even after coordinate corrections. So what are we actually seeing? 3 possibilities remain: coincidence, independent discovery, or inherited design. If coincidence, then humanity's monuments accidentally reflect the same constants as nature itself. If independent discovery, then every culture that looked up at the stars eventually built in harmony with them. If inherited design, then the story of civilization may be older, grander, and more interconnected than history admits. Even ancient texts seem to whisper of something deeper. The Egyptian Book of Thoth describes architecture as the writing of the gods in stone. The Rig Veda of India speaks of builders who laid down the measures of heaven upon the earth. The Mayan Popol Vuh tells of gods who measured the 4 corners of the sky. Different languages, same metaphor, creation as measurement. Knowledge expressed geometrically. Today, physicists describe the universe itself as geometry. Space-time curves. Gravity is geometry in motion. The constants ancient architects revered, pi, phi, and harmonic ratios, reappear in equations governing orbital mechanics, atomic structures, and even DNA spirals. It raises a question almost philosophical. Did ancient builders intuit geometry as the bridge between heaven and earth, physics and spirit? Modern mathematicians studying fractals find that self-similar proportions describe both galaxies and living cells. Ancient architecture mirrors these same self-similar patterns, ratios repeated from room to temple to complex to planetary placement. To those who believe in an ancient code, this is no accident. They argue that sacred geometry wasn't superstition but science, encoded knowledge of resonance, frequency, and harmony. Skeptics counter that geometry's universality explains its recurrence. Circles, triangles, and ratios appear because they are efficient, not mystical. You don't need secret knowledge to build with symmetry, only observation and ingenuity. But even the skeptics admit a truth both sides share. Ancient peoples observed nature with an intensity modern society rarely matches. Whether the pyramid builders intended to encode cosmic constants or simply sought perfection, they achieved both. Their monuments endure while ours crumble. Their mathematics still functions though their languages have vanished. Across millennia, the stones continue to speak in a universal dialect, proportion, precision, and purpose. When viewed through this lens, history becomes a conversation across time. Each generation rediscovers what the last already knew, that the world is ordered, that beauty follows law, that meaning hides in measurement. Maybe the monuments weren't built for the gods but as a mirror of them, a geometric echo of creation itself. The deeper the investigation, the more we find structure where chaos should reign. Ratios, alignments, and constants repeat across space and age, as if civilization were remembering something long forgotten. The code, if it exists, may not be written in symbols but in symmetry. Recent AI-assisted mapping projects by universities in Japan and France used machine learning to detect patterns human analysts might overlook. When fed monument data, dimensions, coordinates, angles, the algorithm identified recurring ratios corresponding to the Fibonacci sequence. It offered no explanation, only observation, the math of life woven into the architecture of eternity. To some, this points toward a forgotten chapter of civilization. To others, it simply demonstrates that intelligence, ancient or modern, recognizes the same order in nature. Either way, the monuments serve as mirrors reflecting our own search for meaning. We look at them and see ourselves. Builders, seekers, pattern makers. Perhaps that's the real code. Not a message from the past but a reflection of the human mind, wired to find harmony, to turn chaos into order, to build meaning from stone and sky. The geometry we find in ancient architecture may not be proof of lost knowledge but proof of something equally profound, that we are designed to seek connection. Still, the mystery endures. From Giza to Angkor, from Stonehenge to Teotihuacan, monuments share geometry that seems to echo the structure of the cosmos itself. Whether coincidence, inheritance, or intuition, the pattern remains. The stones align, the ratios hold. The numbers sing the same song in different tongues. We stand today with satellites instead of sundials, supercomputers instead of chisels, yet we chase the same perfection. Our equations reach farther, but the questions stay the same. Who taught the ancients the mathematics of the universe, or did they teach themselves by listening to it? Every tool we invent reveals the same geometry they once carved. Every new discovery leads us back to foundations they already laid. We're not the first to measure the heavens, only the latest to understand what they saw. So maybe the code wasn't hidden at all. Maybe it was always visible, waiting for eyes precise enough to see. Maybe the ancients didn't leave us a message in stone. They left us a message as stone. That truth, once aligned with the cosmos, endures forever. As the sun rises once more over Giza, its light hits the same points it has for 45 centuries, striking the same stones, casting the same shadow. Time moves. Alignment remains. The monument continues to speak. Not in words, but in light. Perhaps the ultimate mystery of these monuments is not what they hide, but what they reveal about us. We build to remember, to understand, to reach beyond ourselves. Every alignment, every ratio, every stone lifted toward the sky is a testament to one truth. Humanity measures not just the world, but its own longing for eternity. And so, from dust and symmetry, from sunlight and shadow, from silence and stone, the ancient code continues. Whether cosmic coincidence or forgotten design, the pattern endures, waiting, perhaps, for us to finally understand what it has been trying to say all along.